Consumers today are more conscious about food safety than they have ever been, and organic farmers are emerging to meet the demand. But although farming without pesticides provides a healthier alternative to conventionally grown produce, it brings with it a whole slew of challenges. Organic crops grow at a slower rate, and they're often eaten up by insects. Organic farmers are getting creative to overcome the hurdles and keep up with Taiwan's growing appetite for organic food. Our Sunday special report.
At this vegetarian restaurant, the head chef is prepping meals, getting ready for the lunch rush. Mushrooms and carrots are diced up into small pieces, and cabbage is chopped before the vegetables are mixed together with cornstarch. The mixture is kneaded into a vegetarian version of stewed meatballs, a dish known in Chinese as lion's head. This lion's head is prepared with ingredients sourced fully from organic farmers.
Worry-free food must meet one condition. It must be cultivated organically or grown without pesticides.
Following Taiwan's tainted oil scandal of 2014, a food safety revolution has reshaped the country's priorities. Domestically grown produce meeting organic certification standards have proliferated on the market. Produce from small farms began selling not only at specialty stores. They've also found their way into vegetarian restaurants.
Wang
Shuzhen is the owner of a vegetarian restaurant. Opening her fridge, she introduces the various jams, pickled vegetables, and fresh organic produce she has inside. 6 years ago, Wang joined a few like-minded partners and launched an eco-friendly vegetarian restaurant.
When it comes to people who predominantly eat out and don't have time to cook, restaurants can hold some power in influencing people to go for such ingredients. Over time, I think there will be more and more farmers who will find that if they grow this type of organic produce, people will buy it.
For restaurateurs, food safety is key to a sustainable business. That's what makes finding a reliable organic supplier so important. Walking into this organic farm situated in New Taipei City, one is greeted with melons, beans, and other vegetables. Wang's business partner, Robin Winkler, is here visiting this small farm, which is one of their restaurant suppliers. Winkler and farmer Qiu Xianhui's relationship extends beyond business. The two have a close friendship that dates back many years. Back in 2008, the Taipei Detention Center in New Taipei City's Tucheng district was mulling a relocation. They planned to move to a nearly 200-hectare lot formerly used as an ammunitions dump. As the site was military property, it was heavily guarded, and nature was allowed to flourish without human intervention. The area around the site was farmland. Locals worried that if the detention center moved in, it would wipe out this last bastion of nature within the city. Locals took to the streets in protest, with Qiu among them. At the time, many environmental activist groups lent their voices to the protest. Winkler, who became a naturalized ROC citizen in 2003, was one of those protesters.
The protest was only half the battle. If we hadn't created this business, all we would have done was protest. So I made Qiu Xianhui a business partner.
Thinking back to that year, the two men have much to talk about, their conversation never ending as they walk from the outdoor garden to the netted enclosure. As they move from one plant to the next, Winkler picks leafy vegetables and samples them while talking to Qiu. Because it is an organic farm, Qiu does not use pesticides. Instead, throughout the farm, flypaper is hung to prevent an outbreak of harmful insects. Pheromone traps are placed to prevent insect reproduction.
A lot of wild plants that can be eaten raw can be gathered. Because the things we eat are so close to Taipei, we ought to preserve all places like this.
Because Qiu knew so little about organic farming and because the land was unsuitable, he found himself failing no matter what he planted. For 4 years, every day was a painful struggle.
It
was strange. I had taken 1.74 million NT dollars out of my retirement funds, and within 4 years had spent it all. In a month, I was selling less than $10,000 NT worth of produce, and I found myself swallowing tears throughout the night.
Unable to make ends meet, Cho came close to retiring. But in the end, he pressed on and signed up for a class where he learned ways to improve. The break gave his land time to sit fallow. It also led him to discover that he hadn't done enough thinking about market segmentation.
We have to segment ourselves from the regular market. So I planted strange things. Things other people wouldn't plant, I would plant. For example, things like kale or arugula. These past 2 or 3 years, these vegetables have become popular, but I've been planting them for 7 or 8 years.
Cho's garden only has 3 plots of land, so the scale of his business is still comparatively small. But looking over his garden, one sees a sea of vegetables of 20 or 30 varieties. Cho adopted a business model that prioritizes a diversity of produce, each grown in a small quantity. He has his own plant nursery.
I started out slow with organic food clubs in nearby communities. I brought them onto the farm to take a look, and later they became my customers.
After securing a customer base, Cho focused on ensuring a steady supply of produce. That year, Winkler reached out. To encourage Cho to focus on organic farming, Winkler purchased produce from him at above market prices.
He hoped that I wouldn't mess around during the growing process. Whatever I produced, he would definitely buy. This put me at ease.
Cho's origin story and his journey have made his farm popular for school field trips and on-site visits. Visitors come wanting to learn from him and to experience a day as a farmer. Taking advantage of a rare break in the rain, Linkou resident Zhou Yejian grabbed his hoe and basket and headed to his garden to harvest cabbages. The cabbages along the perimeter are riddled with holes where they were eaten by insects. Zhou cautiously gathers into his basket some of the smaller cabbages. Zhou, 42, previously worked in finance and enjoyed a stable income. Later on, he decided to give up his white-collar lifestyle. He returned to his hometown to take over his father's farm and start a new life.
Previously, I was a clerk. Before the financial crisis, the company wanted us to sell financial derivatives. We wouldn't even buy those things ourselves, so I gave up that job and came back.
Unwilling to take up work that did not suit, Zhou returned home to help his father grow vegetables. He became committed to treating the land with respect.
I feel that installing netted enclosures has a protective effect for organic plants. It's comparatively simple. You just need to apply fertilizer, plant seeds, water them, and that's it. You don't need to do anything. It's perfect for lazy people like me.
Zhou calls himself lazy, but farming without pesticides is significantly harder than the traditional way. To prevent an infestation of insects, Zhou must walk through the garden every 2 to 3 hours to inspect the plants. Pulling up a cabbage, he checks under its top leaves and notices that fruit flies have made their way in.
Before the sun comes up, you can see caterpillars making an appearance. If you're out there too late, they'll have already gone into hiding. It's the same with snails. You'd best get out there at around 5 or 6 a.m. to take a look.
Waking up at 5 a.m. to check on the garden is just business as usual for Zhou. He has to know the growing patterns of all manner of vegetables to avoid missing the ideal time for harvest. Some vegetables need to be harvested in the middle of the night.
There is indeed harvesting in the middle of the night. For example, Chinese kale is best harvested in the morning. If you're unable to harvest it in the morning, then you need to do it at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. When a cold air current blows in, that is the worst for the plant.
After a rigorous test process, Zhou's farm was certified organic in 2006 by the new Taipei City Agriculture Department. Now the focus of his small farm is to expand its markets.
一般我们大概是
On average, each week we offload about 200 kilograms of vegetables.
With the help of the city government, Joe and some other small farms work with elementary schools in the city to provide produce for school lunches. Once every week, they send vegetables to the schools.
稍微轻轻折一下，然后全部都可以吃，整株都可以吃。小的时候采收有个好处就是它的味道不会那么重，小朋友比较可以接受它这个口感。
Organic farming is on the rise in Taiwan, with more and more people trying their hand at growing plants toxin-free. Organic farmers face not only insect infestations, but also the challenge of keeping quality consistent. Organic produce also grows at a slower rate. But despite these challenges, organic farmers say they're happy with their choice.
那我们是有经过5年10年。
It took us 5 years, 10 years. One step at a time, we got to where we are now.
Throughout my life, I was not properly taught the word regret. I can't even write it. I can only look to the future.